Yaroslav, welcome to TvAbraham. Shayna and I are super pleased to have you with us, and all of us are following your reporting from the Wall Street Journal as Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent. So we have a whole world to cover, and let's just get started.
Thank you for having me. Great to be on the show.
Let's talk about Ukraine, right, what's going on right now. Let's just agree between the three of us here, it's an existential war for Ukraine.
Absolutely is.
Absolutely is, right? Why is it that Ukraine is fighting, it has a very capable military, but it's fighting with basically middle-aged and older men? Why isn't it conscripting 18 to 25-year-olds?
Well, again, first of all, there's not that many of them. If you look at the demographic pyramid of Ukraine, the time when this 18 to 25-year-olds were supposed to be born is when Ukraine was in a complete economic and social crisis. So for every 20-year-old, there are 2 or 3 45-year-olds in Ukraine.
Really? Oh.
And that is the reason, same in Russia, by the way, because they all went through the same upheaval in the 1990s.
And Russia also isn't conscripting, is it?
No. And so, because you said this is an existential war.
Yes.
And because Ukraine sees it as a war for the survival of the Ukrainian nation, there is this political consensus that people who have not yet had children, people who are the future of the country, should be the last ones to be sent to this meat grinder. This pressure to send them to the front would only make sense if there is also equipment. It doesn't make sense to.
So they don't have enough equipment to.
Well, there's never enough equipment in the war. Obviously,
No.
Ukraine is outmatched.
Yeah.
By Russia. There's not enough ammunition, there's not enough armor, there is definitely not enough airplanes,
Right, well, yes.
And North Korea managed to supply the Russian military with more shells than the European Union.
If this is an existential war for Ukraine, which I think we can all agree, it's also a big threat to Europe. And of
Absolutely.
course, and yet, President Trump has a point here that the U.S. has provided more aid than Europe.
The European aid is larger than American aid in absolute numbers.
It depends what you count, of course.
Well,
but,
total aid, but also
but a lot of it's loans. It's not grants.
not a lot of not a lot of it is loans.
Right.
Most of it is grants.
Okay.
And a lot of it also, now increasingly so, is aid in the form of investment in Ukrainian military industries. But you're right. I mean, the Europeans are seeing this increasingly as an existential war for them too. Well, now is the moment of truth for Europe.
You're right.
And if you talk to European defense planners, including German ones, they will tell you very openly that they have the year 2029 on the calendars as the year when they think when Russia will be able to launch a full-scale war against the European Union, against countries in NATO and the EU right now. And
so you see them taking the steps necessary to defend themselves now?
Well, they are doing it now. They are doing, but it's also, look at the numbers, right? I mean, there is no future defense of Europe without Ukraine. Ukraine has an army of nearly 1 million men and women,
Yes.
which is more than the armies of Germany, France, United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, throw in a few others put together. And it's one of only 2 armies in the world that have actual experience fighting a modern, sophisticated, near-peer enemy. The other army with that experience is the Russian army. A Russian army that emerges victorious in Ukraine would be unstoppable in Europe unless the Ukrainian army is still there as a shield of Europe. And I think there is a growing realization of this in Europe, which is why so much money is now being channeled to Ukraine to develop the Ukrainian capabilities, especially in the fields like drones, which have revolutionized warfare and where Ukraine is, along Russia, one of the 2 world leaders in new technologies.